The Morning Dump
from Hurrdat Sports
with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Morning dump time that we have to carry over from coffee and cream. Lots to discuss.
For a little while longer, anyway.
I love our little teases. Like, we've done this before, and we'll do it again. I'm a big fan of saying, like, hey.
How about a beer?
Guess what's coming?
How about
Guess what's coming?
Nebraska brew?
Hey.
How about an Acres?
How about an Acres? You know, I'll tell you what. Something we didn't get to on the show.
Mosaic?
Let's remind people that tomorrow is our live event at Hale Varsity Club, Coffee and Cream Live.
Tomorrow.
Join us. I think it starts at, 6 a.m.? 6:30 a.m.?
Crackhead.
7 a.m.?
Doors open, I think, at 6:45.
Doors open at 6:45. See, that's why DB's here. He keeps me honest. They do. Wow, nice work. Doors open at 6:45. The event runs from 7 to 9. There will be raffle prizes. There will be brunch drinks. And
so my buddy's
special guests.
I won't call him by name, but so my buddy goes, "Hey, are they serving alcohol?" I'm like, "Man, it's only my friends that ask that."
No, my friends would too. If I
Okay.
said, hey, come to this event in the morning, they're like, who's buying the drinks?
Yeah. and he used the word booze, so that just lets you know, kind of where
Hey,
he's
he
at.
doesn't want a mimosa.
He goes, "Hey, are they serving booze for breakfast?" I was like, wow.
You can get breakfast pizza. You could get a breakfast burrito.
Burrito.
Or there's one rotating dish.
I know the rotating dish. But much
Do we
like
wait?
it's a secret.
It's a secret.
It's a secret. Well, did you hear Nick and I going through the menu the other day?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you guys spent 15 minutes talking about different things you could do. And he's so creative.
He's so full disclosure, he's a G.
You're a big Nick fan.
Yes.
I said Nick.
Yes. We beat them in overtime to bail you out. 129-122 in the Garden. That's what you meant, right?
Yeah.
Of course. If
exactly what I
there was
meant.
any mispronunciation, it was
Correct.
Nick's.
Correct. Not to be confused with Grady
anything
Richard.
else. Yeah. Not to be confused with Tony Romo or anybody else with the Bengals. Yeah. So
What happened there?
I don't know. So anyway, yeah, he's fantastic.
Coffee and Cream Live will happen the first and third Fridays from 7 to 9 a.m.
Yeah,
each
it's on
month.
the show. We've got Bruce Chubbuck Jr.
We have Amon Green.
Amon Green. We have Shane, yay or nay to Michael Bruntz?
Michael's in.
Michael Bruntz and Mike Sauter. So a fantastic show.
We will
Four for the Hood.
do the
told him-
sports six-pack,
With
which is
Punxsutawney
brand
Petey
new.
Pablo.
Yeah, you know what? I told DB, you probably have to get the bleeper out here, Shaner, but I said a few words toward Punxsutawney Phil for seeing his blah, blah, blah shadow. And
So my buddy
now
Kevin
there's
told
6
me-
more weeks of winter.
So my buddy Kevin told me it's 39% success rate.
That
Accuracy
that
rate.
it
I
hits.
mean. Yeah.
So that means he has a better chance of it
Being wrong than he
So
does
that's a
right.
good thing.
Yes.
Yes.
So in hindsight, I'm happy that he saw his shadow.
Yeah. Why all the expletives though?
Because Phil is just such an animal.
Were you were into alliteration?
Yeah, I was. I definitely
It's a
was.
lot of F's.
No,
yeah.
PHs.
F-I-L-L.
A lot of Fs. They were all PHs.
His name's not Phil?
It is Phil.
Is it Feel?
No, I felt a certain way, though, about him seeing his shadow.
I feel some type of way.
So come join us for the show. We got a lot planned, a lot of fun, and just a lot to talk about. So,
Mostly good food and fellowship. Because
yeah,
that's what it's about.
That's exactly what it's about.
And unlike Coach Rule will let you use your phone while you're eating.
100%. 100%.
100%.
Although if you're like me and you show up to something, you won't be on your phone because you'll feel rude. So eye contact's big.
I don't know if I could go to a presser because I don't know if I should be typing while they're talking.
Who talks like that?
Type your brains out, man. Just
No, you don't point the finger.
you point the thumb.
What are you trying to start here, DB?
Hey, Where's Carl Pelini when I need him, Shane?
I can't wait. I can't wait for you to be on the call
what are
next
you
year on
trying
the
to
Husker Radio
do?
Network, and I am just going to pinpoint things you say like you pinpoint Tony Romo.
I didn't-
I can't wait. I can't wait for August.
What? I don't know. It's been 4 minutes in the game. Biggest moment of the game.
I can't wait. Or if you're not saying them, your phone's going to have 27 missed messages from
That's
me
all right.
about things that you should be saying.
I'll text you back. You text me, I text you. I can
Oh, so
multitask.
you're not going to focus on the game. You're
No.
telling the people right now that
Dude,
you are not focusing.
I'm doing broadcasts, and I'm on TweetDeck.
What?
Huh? Yeah, I can. It doesn't. I'm not distracted.
Again, doors open. Doors open at 6:45. Join us from 7 to 9 tomorrow for the live show. Also, I was a little disappointed.
Were you in the locker room? I didn't see you.
Huh?
What? What are you trying to do?
What are you trying to say now?
Yeah, I need to effort those.
Yeah, we had a couple of drops from Bo's brother that was in the locker room that took
Got it.
umbrage with a reporter. And he tried to assume that he knew what was going on. And Carl
with you now.
Pelini, who was coaching D-line at the time, looked dead at the reporter and he said, "What are you trying to do? I didn't see you in the locker room." And it was made for a very awkward
Doesn't shock me.
There was
moment.
Does not shock me.
there was a few drops that we had that one brother would reference the other brother kind of like that. That was kind
He
of
means
Family member.
biological.
yeah,
Family member.
family member.
Not like me and you.
We are brothers.
You know, I'm gonna go back to not saying anything.
See you, Shane.
You talking to a ghost?
Hey, our poll question today was who's the most dominant player in college basketball right now? And I was going to say I was a little disappointed with how little interaction we got on this. Maybe I shouldn't just do a Big Ten poll question. Maybe I should keep it more local, or like yesterday's poll question got a ton of interaction because you could make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Zach Edey took it home with 60% of the votes. Believe it or not, DB, I told you this. I chose Trace Jackson Davis. And the reason I chose TJD for this one, 3 first names, by the way, is because the quote said right now. It did not say all year. It said right now. And I think Trace Jackson Davis is the most dominant player right now.
Welcome to the good side.
Doesn't mean I think he's the most dominant player in college basketball, because that still lies in the hands of Zach Edey. But right now, it's TJD. And
you
you could convince me, though, that it's more important now than it is to have the all-season accolade.
Hey, so how do you explain Indiana stubbing their toe? Like, we just can't really – can we buy in? We can't really buy in, can we?
They've had a lot of games that we watch and think, wow, this team, once they get to the tournament, they could go to the Sweet 16, they could go to the Elite 8, whatever. But they also have games that tell us they're going to get bounced in the first
You're like,
round.
who is this we're watching?
Right.
But when they're going, I don't know. I like Indiana.
They go.
I like Indiana a lot.
Hood Schifino's a stud. So I was looking at a mock draft.
And you know what's funny? Just to finish the Indiana thought. It's because you alluded to the other day, we were just talking teams in the Big Ten, that we didn't really get Maryland and we didn't understand Maryland because Maryland was struggling because Nebraska had just lost to them, right? They hammered Indiana at home.
Right. Right.
Just like –
So, to further that Indiana thought, though, is I was looking at a mock draft yesterday, and Jalen Hood-Schifino, I know he's younger than Trace Jackson Davis, but was projected so much higher than TJD.
Because Trace Jackson Davis, for all intents and purposes, I think people worry about his lateral foot quickness, and he can't shoot from distance. I mean, he's an around-the-basket guy, and I don't think people think he's explosive enough to make a living.
And then I was shocked that Zach Edey wasn't even on the list, but you weren't. That didn't surprise you all too much.
There's no real spots for guys like that in the NBA. Too many ball screens, too many scoring threats that play the 5. People would go small, and he would never play. He can't even guard somebody his size like Giannis or Porzingis because pull him 16, 17 feet from the basket, it's a train wreck. He can't guard anybody. Heck, DeAndre Jordan can't play, and he's 6'11" because he can't move.
DeAndre Jordan had some good years.
He did. He had about 3 years when he's part of Lob City. 3 maybe pushing it.
I think Zach Edey could be successful just because of his size. I mean, size matters, right?
See,
that's what they always say, and
that's a lie, by the way.
It is when you talk about athleticism in the NBA because more times than not, people are already 6'8".
Yeah,
people are already 6'9".
People are going to be surprised that Kalkbrenner comes back, and it's like,
is Kalkbrenner? Ooh. Okay, take this lightly. Is Kalkbrenner Luka Garza?
Garza was pretty sweet. I mean, what would keep them from going to the next level? Yes.
So, like, he would be a come-off-the-bench player?
Coming out, guarding on the perimeter. Although Kalkbrenner could turn out to be a better shooter.
100%.
So, I mean, we'll see where they go with that. But I do believe they'll come back for very similar reasons. I mean, Garza came back as the player of the year.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I could see that.
Okay. I didn't want
kind of deep.
I didn't want people to think like, hey,
you're making those linear.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't like making those linear
generalities, right?
Not even just that, like comparisons, because I'm like, there's so many other players that you can compare this guy to.
No,
but
I get it.
when I watched Luka Garza, because I have a buddy, my guy I used to work for, he went to cover the Timberwolves the other night, and Garza was on the bench, and now he wasn't playing because he was injured, and he just didn't get time off the bench either. But I thought about it, and when you just brought up Kalkbrenner's name, I'm like, man, I could see Kalkbrenner sitting in that chair too someday. Mm-hmm. But sitting in that chair, not being a starter in the starting five. Not to say that, hey, Kalkbrenner doesn't have the capability to be that someday, because he absolutely does. Anybody can work on themselves to master that part of the game necessary to play in the NBA. So I don't want this to be like, hey, I'm poo-pooing on Kalkbrenner, and he's never going to be that.
Poo-poo.
But I just that just stuck out in my mind right there when we brought up those names. Speaking of Creighton, they did not play their best basketball last night. But, hey, sometimes you don't have to play your best basketball to win. And a lot of times you need a loss like that. Or a loss. That's not the right word. You need the ugliness to be out there and know that you can still win through it. Like, it doesn't have to be pretty. You don't have to beat Georgetown by 20 points to think like, hey, this team is still on the ride that they're on.
Were you disappointed in a 28-point second half?
I was, but I actually think it showed Creighton's strengths more than it did their weaknesses.
Oh, glass half full.
Because they had, the shooting woes. What they were able to control in this game was their defense, and that's what they've been priding themselves on over this 5-game winning stretch. You don't have – for teams out there, you have to take advantage of Creighton when they're uncomfortable. You just have to. When they're not shooting the ball well, you have to attack them at their core.
Yeah.
Kalkbrenner got a foul within the first minute and a half of that game.
I know, and you're like,
and then Coach
here we go with Wahab again.
Coach Mack's like, man, I can't have you pick up 2 fouls within the first 5 minutes. But when Kalkbrenner comes back into the game, if I'm Georgetown, I'm not saying, hey, we're going to go down and not work the basketball. Like, they didn't even move the basketball around. They just went down and took, like, some off-balance jumper and then settled with that, and that's how they kind of stayed relevant in that game because some of those shots more times than not fell. Why aren't you taking the ball into Kalkbrenner's chest? Take him out of the game. What are you doing?
Shady's fired up.
I got to say, what's beaming through the holes in that game was their defense. And if you can, look, Georgetown had 6 turnovers.
I got my scope on you.
Creighton didn't do anything overly special defensively outside of the fact that they made Georgetown uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was very, very limited possession. So there's 2 things that probably bother you. yesterday if you're a Jays fan. Although you're riding some momentum, you wanted to just get that one out of the way, chalk it up as a W. You turned the ball over 10 times. You couldn't really play anybody off the bench. Farabello played 12 minutes. I don't think anybody else played more than 6. Sherman didn't shoot it well. He was 3 of 10. All 3 were threes. And I don't think you loved your field goal percentage. You just couldn't. Offensively, you were a mess. But for everybody not named Joel Lorenzi, Andrew Rogers, and Old Dirty, ODB, we have been lamenting the last couple of weeks. Creighton defensively, quietly, is getting much, much better.
They defend without fouling.
Now listen, Georgetown is a Marquette. Let's not get it twisted, right? Not the epitome of offensive
But what did they do against
efficiency.
Xavier?
But defensively, man, Creighton is really starting to settle in.
And you have to find different ways to win, no matter what.
Especially in this conference.
Absolutely. And with how strong teams are this year in particular.
Dude, and it could get a lot better. I hear all these rumblings and rumors, potentially an Ed Cooley going to Georgetown.
Yeah, can you believe that? Holy cow.
How about this, though? Rick Pitino potentially landing in St. John's. How about that coaching conference? If Cooley goes to Georgetown, and I know he's just changing locations from Providence to Georgetown, and Rick Pitino comes over to coach St. John, can you imagine that the prowess in that coaching conference?
Can you rank if you made a top 3 for basketball conferences today, what would be the top 3?
It's style of play, or for teams or coaching?
Just teams.
Well, Big 12.
So Big 12 is 1.
Yeah. I will go Big 12. I'll probably go Big 12, Big East, Big 10 right now.
See, I would have left the SEC out too.
I don't.
I'm not fascinated by the SEC.
Everybody likes Arkansas, Alabama, and Tennessee. I don't know if I love any of them.
I will say this, though, to further that point to where you were going with coaches, because of what you just said there, because you put the Big East as like the second best conference to play in, that's why you get guys like Cooley and Pitino that want to coach at those institutions.
So if you're Cooley, would you leave Providence for Georgetown?
Yes, for the support, the administrative support that you would get there with that program.
I think they'll spend too.
And that's another great point too. And I honestly believe that you part ways mutually with Ewing because he is a national treasure from that school. And you still get him involved in recruiting for Cooley's team, if Cooley is the guy there. I think you can still convince him to do that.
Yeah. But can you imagine, though, if a really quality coach at Georgetown?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're talking about a team with roots. Like, does Providence
no
have,
pun intended.
Does Providence have the roots of Georgetown?
No, Providence has Ed Cooley.
Mm-hmm. So you bring Ed Cooley over like Marquette brought Shaka Smart over.
Hey, so if you're a guy, this says the guy that made the move in the same market, if you're Cooley, do you go from Providence to Georgetown? Like, would you be an in-conference guy? Would you go from – and we saw what's happening with Minnesota and their staff going to Wisconsin.
Right.
Right. Would you be an in-conference guy?
I would be if I played the competition that the Big East puts out. It's one thing to say, like, hey, I'm going to move from –
Ed Cooley's got it pretty good at Providence.
It's one.
I don't know their fiscal situation with pay, and I think he is pretty much capped, and I know they have to do quite a bit of fundraising,
right?
Because he is the man on campus. It's been a long time since they had Eric Murdoch.
Well, and think about it from this perspective. When Kirby Smart left Bama, he went to an SEC school. He didn't just go to the Big Ten, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at that just with coaches all over the place. Why leave the best? But you want to coach the best. So that's why you make that move, that transition. Now, moving from Bama to Georgia is a completely different example because you're moving from Providence to Georgetown, and you're just going with like level of prestige when it comes to the school popularity status. But I think making lateral moves are okay, and coaches want to do that because they want to be.
But you wouldn't think that was a lateral job, would you?
No.
You think Georgetown's a better job?
I think Georgetown's a better
Providence
job.
Wins considerably.
Correct.
More.
Because of what? Ed Cooley.
Yeah.
You win because of Ed Cooley.
So Providence has had 12 coaches in their illustrious 74-year history.
Providence has had how many?
12.
Okay.
You ready? Jason Mulaney, Ed Cooley, Dave Gavitt, Tim Welsh, Rick Barnes,
Pretty good.
Albert McClellan, Pete Gillen, Keno Davis, Rick Pitino, Gary Walters, Gordon Chisa, and Larry Drew.
So you said 3 names on there that everybody knows in the sport of college basketball. You said Barnes.
Everybody.
You said Pitino. And you said Gillum.
Yeah. 8 of those coaches have a winning percentage above 50%. 8 of the 12. How about that?
Yeah.
Could you add Ed Cooley to the list of Georgetown coaches? And how many people know that Rick Barnes was at Providence from, I only know because it was during my high school era, 89 to 94. And that's something.
The Big East is a desirable location.
How scary would Rick Pitino be at St. John's?
Very. And, okay, so St. John's, correct me if I'm wrong. They play at Madison Square, right?
Sometimes. They can play on campus, too.
Right. But
Yeah.
So you have.
They have an on-campus site.
You already have that appeal to recruits out there. Like, hey, you get to play with the Knicks play.
Yeah.
This is already
Occasionally.
right, but this is something that a lot of teams don't get. And so if you bring Rick Pitino in, who's had tremendous success, he had a lot of success at Louisville. Now you're looking at
Carnesecca Arena. Whew.
Now you're looking at moving Ed Cooley, which Providence will probably bring in another coach. Or
I don't think Providence can afford to match his salary. And Cooley may want to do something
Georgetown can throw the sink at him.
Yeah.
They can get Cooley they could get whoever they wanted at Georgetown. You got Patrick Ewing, and it's not hard to sell a guy that came out of your program.
Yeah.
But it's also not hard to sell the program of
similar
Georgetown.
are Georgetown and Nebraska?
In regards to rich history,
Being held captive by the past.
they are up here. They are both up here. Now, granted, Georgetown has gotten somewhere in the Ewing era.
Well, they
more
had the
than Nebraska can
FGCU
say.
blunder, but outside of that, the
Right.
late miraculous run in the tourney. That didn't go as planned.
No. But, yeah, the Big East is desirable. And, up next for Creighton is Villanova. And what are they? Like, who are
I don't know.
they now?
They played their tails off last night against Marquette. And I thought to myself, if they could just get healthy and get some consistency, but they don't shoot the ball well enough, and they petered late. Like, I just think Marquette offensively is just too efficient. But, wow, last night Nova gave them all they wanted. Led at the half, but couldn't close the show, which has been the story of Nova. Outscored by 10 in the second half. So, I don't even know who Villanova is, to be honest.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know what their identity is. We've been giving them too many excuses for injuries this year.
But they are replacing a legend as their head coach.
And I'm there. But Villanova is the type of program that has their ducks in a row. And why do we give them bunnies? Like, why do we give them every chance in the
it's Nova.
book?
They need somebody aside from Caleb Daniels to step up. But Big East is going to be interesting, boy. This race is going to be hot and heavy, and it would not surprise me. What if Creighton ran the table for a potential 1 seed in the Big East tournament? Would you laugh?
No, because
I wouldn't either.
I would venture to say that expectation level was that.
Yeah. I mean, because right now, Marquette and Xavier at 10-2. Creighton's only a game out.
And you play UConn again. You play Marquette again.
Hey, and how funny is this? 2 weeks ago, we said, how many more quality wins does Creighton need to get into the tournament? Do you remember those days?
Mm-hmm. Sure do.
That was years ago.
That was before John Fanta.
Right.
That was before John Fanta.
I mean, basically. And since then, they've won 5 in a row. And in the famous words of Doc Sadler, we're going to be all right. We're going to be just fine.
We're going to be all right.
Yeah, Creighton will continue to turn some heads. I expect 6 in a row as they come back home against a struggling Villanova team.
We said that if they ran the table and won the next 4, we felt really good.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel really good because 3 of those 4 ran home.
If I'm Marquette, I'm kind of shaking in my boots a little bit too because Creighton is on one right now.
Yeah, but
Marquette is on one too.
They're such a tough matchup for Creighton, especially when Creighton is defending.
Yeah,
They're
but I'll tell you what, we didn't see Creighton defend like they have been the last 5 times against Marquette the first time.
Kalk and Iguodaro will be.
And what was the separator in that first game?
No, I understand. That's your listen. If nothing else, at the end of this year, you will have the Ryan Kalkbrenner discussion as like a notch in your
and my
in
tool
your holster,
belt,
a feather in your cap, because you were all in on the value of Kalkbrenner after the second straight loss. I'm like
5 games in.
Can we let this play out a little? It's only been 2 in a row
before Christmas break.
It's only been 2 in a row, Drew Down, and we're panicking. I don't know.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden the sirens were going off for 6 more games.
Yeah. You had your Tony Romo moment. I don't know, DB. Could be the biggest.
I don't know. He ran into 3. Kalkbrenner's just not there.
3 cocks. 3
Brenners.
3 cock. What? Kalkbrenners. That's what he meant to say.
Yep.
That's what that is, man. I'm telling you.
Hey, we have a lot of fun on Morning Dump, and we hope that you enjoy the show as well. Give us a follow at Hurrdat Sports. You can find Morning Dump wherever you get your podcasts. That's Apple, that's Spotify. You can find the show if you missed anything. Coffee and cream, but you have to type in Hail Varsity Radio instead to get there. He's at Damon Benning on Twitter. I'm at Andrew Rogers TV. Hey, if you're coming tomorrow, let us know. Shoot us a message. And if you have any ideas of what or questions that you'd like us to answer too, we're going to
what we should put on the menu.
What's that? Oh, for future ones? Yeah. Oh, of course. But outside of that, we'll be doing Sports Six Pack for the first time, which is questions that come from you. And there is already one question that we didn't get to on the show today, and that was from Jim in Minnesota that I alluded to. But I'm going to hold it for tomorrow because it'll fit perfectly in our Sports Six Pack.
Save it.
So we'll do that. I have another prompt that I brought up to DB earlier this week that I've been waiting to get an answer on. So you know what? This one's a funny one. So be ready to laugh. Be ready to smile. We're going to have some fun tomorrow. So get your butt to Hail Varsity Club, eat some breakfast, and enjoy the show. We'll see you then.